Your friend worked for 40 years. He went to work every Monday, watching his salary devoured by taxes. He followed the rules meticulously until the day he finally retired. His bank account began growing at a faster rate than during his working years. His bank account started growing faster than it ever did while he was employed. That should make you angry, not at him. At the story, you were told your entire adult life. I ran into a retired neighbor at a cookout a while back. 68 years old, 5 years out of the workforce. I asked him the polite question, "How is retirement treating you?" Expecting the usual tight smile and something about keeping busy. Instead, he told me flat out that he is doing better financially now than he ever did with a salary. I almost dropped my plate, figured he'd gotten lucky. Maybe inherited something, maybe hit a stock at the right time. But then I started pulling the thread, talking to other retirees, looking at the actual numbers, and it turns out this isn't rare. It is shockingly common. People walk away from their careers, and their net worth climbs, not because of some trick, because the math was rigged against them while they were working. And it quietly unrigs itself the moment they stop. Think about what was happening to your $100,000 salary. Federal tax, state tax, Social Security, Medicare. By the time all those hands pulled out of your pocket, you were taking home maybe 65, maybe 70. You lost a third of your income before you bought a single grocery. Now look at what happens on the other side. A retiree pulls $60,000 a year from a mix of Social Security and an EIA. But only about half of that Social Security is even taxable. The standard deduction alone, roughly $17,000 once you're past 65, erases a massive chunk before the government even gets to look at it. Throw in a Roth withdrawal or a married filing status, and that taxable number shrinks even further. Same spending power, radically different tax bill. The person sitting on a porch with nowhere to be on a Wednesday is keeping more of their money than you are after a 50-hour work week. That is not an opinion, that is just arithmetic. You were funding that gap your entire career and never once questioned where it went. That is the part that stings. It is not that retirees discovered some secret. It is that the wealth you thought you were building at your desk was being bled out in real time, and you called it normal. You called it responsible. You budgeted around it, planned your life inside it, and never noticed that the cage had a door. So if the paycheck was never really the wealth engine, you thought it was what actually is. Because the retirees who are getting richer right now figured that out a long time ago. And the answer has nothing to do with earning more. Let's talk about where your money actually goes while you're still punching a clock. Sit down one evening and add up what it costs you just to show up to work. Gas, oil changes, tire rotations, maybe a parking pass downtown or a monthly transit card. Now add the wardrobe, depending on your field. You might be dropping serious cash just to look the part. Toss in lunch 4 or 5 days a week. That coffee you grab on autopilot every morning. And you're bleeding money on things that exist purely because you have a job. Then there are the big ticket items that quietly disappear in retirement. The mortgage is paid off, or it should be. The kids are out. No more tuition checks. No more grocery bills that look like you're feeding a small army. No more travel soccer fees or braces payments. And here is one almost nobody accounts for. When you're working full-time, you're buying your way out of exhaustion. Take out 3 nights a week because you're too fried to cook. A lawn service because Saturday is the only day you can breathe. Maybe a house cleaner twice a month. None of that is laziness. It is the price of having no time. Retire, and suddenly you've got all the time in the world. You cook, you mow, you handle it yourself. Glamorous. Not even a little, but stack those savings up over 12 months. And you're looking at thousands of dollars that just stop leaving your account. So on one side, the government takes less. On the other side, your life costs less. Those two forces working together create a gap that most people never see coming. These aren't lottery winners. They're people who let 2 simple math problems run long enough to produce an answer that looks like magic. But it isn't magic, and the real engine behind that growing balance, the part that turns $300,000 of your own contributions into a portfolio north of $1 million. That is a whole different conversation, and it is the one most people get completely wrong. Picture 2 people in the same Social Security office on the same Tuesday morning. Both 66, both filling out identical forms. Both about to receive roughly the same monthly check. One of them is about to get quietly, steadily richer for the rest of their life. The other will spend every dollar before the next deposit hits. Same system, same check, completely different futures. And the dividing line has nothing to do with who worked harder. This is where the real architecture of retirement wealth shows itself. That compound growth we talked about, dividends rolling in, capital gains stacking, interest accumulating. It only runs for people who already own the machine. If you spent 30 years earning paychecks and never built a portfolio, compounding does nothing for you in retirement. The retiree with $1 million portfolio pulling 4% isn't performing financial genius, they're collecting rent on capital, and the math handles the rest. Their balance grows even while they spend because returns outpace withdrawals. The retiree across town with $12,000 in savings is stretching Social Security across groceries, utilities, and prescriptions, coming up short by the 23rd of every month. Now, think about what Social Security actually does here. For the person without assets, it is survival income barely covers the basics. For the person with a 7-figure portfolio, that same $1,800 a month is a moat. It means they never have to touch their investments for rent or food. Every month, Social Security covers the electric bill. That is another month their portfolio compounds untouched. Guaranteed income for life, inflation adjusted, acting as a permanent shield around assets that are already growing. Same government program quietly accelerating wealth for those who have it, while barely keeping everyone else afloat. Healthcare tells the same story with bigger numbers. A couple in their early 60s paying $2,000 a month for private insurance is bleeding $24,000 a year just to stay covered. That is money that could be compounding. They're trapped between leaving an employer plan and qualifying for Medicare, watching savings drain toward premiums instead of growing. But the moment Medicare kicks in and those costs collapse, the people with substantial portfolios don't just save money, That freed up cash stays invested. It compounds. The gap between owners and non-owners doesn't just persist in retirement. It widens quietly every single month. So when someone tells you retirees get richer without working, ask the follow-up nobody wants to hear, which retirees? Because the answer runs on ownership, not effort. And that ownership question gets even more interesting. When you look at what happens to the money, that shows up when you least expect it. If you're between 62 and 65, grab a napkin or open a spreadsheet. I don't care which, and write down every dollar. You currently pay for health coverage, premium, deductible, copays, the whole ugly stack. Then look up what Medicare Part B actually costs. For most people, it is around $175 a month. That difference between what you're bleeding right now and what you'll pay once 65 hits isn't some theoretical saving. That is real money, freed up every single month. Cash that can slide into an index fund and sit there quietly compounding while you sleep. And if you're already retired and past 65, here is yours. Calculate what you used to spend commuting. Gas, tolls, parking, the sad $11 desk salad. Set up an automatic transfer for that exact amount into a separate investment account. You're not earning commute money anymore, but you're not spending it either. And most people let it dissolve into slightly better dinners. Or another streaming service they watch twice. Capture it, automate it, forget it exists. None of this is exciting. Nobody's going viral for doing subtraction on Zillow. But that is precisely why it works. These moves are boring enough to actually follow through on, and small enough that they don't trigger the part of your brain that panics and freezes. Every retiree who watched their net worth keep climbing did some version of this. They didn't stumble into it. They made one tedious mechanical decision at a time, and the math handled the rest. Now, everything we've talked about so far is money you can plan around. But what about the cash that lands in your lap completely out of nowhere? An inheritance from a parent who passed in your late 60s. Old stock options you forgot you were sitting on. A rental property you finally let go after holding it for 30 years. These aren't strategies. You can't plan around them. But when they land, they go straight into your column because you already covered your bases everywhere else. That is the quiet math of a retirement that was built right. The windfall doesn't save you. It just makes the surplus a little fatter. But I want to flip this around for a second, because I'd be lying to you if I pretended this story ends well for everybody. Picture someone else, same age, same neighborhood, maybe even the same job title you had. They retired too, except they're sitting at their kitchen table at 11 at night with a credit card statement, and a car payment, and a gut that won't stop churning. Their portfolio isn't compounding. It is hemorrhaging. Every month, they pull more than it grows. And the balance drops like a slow leak in a tire you keep hoping will hold. Nobody talks about these folks at barbecues. Nobody posts that comment saying, retired and doing better than ever. They just go quiet. And the difference between that person and the one whose net worth keeps climbing isn't luck. It isn't some genius stock pick. It is boring. Painfully boring. It is whether you saved consistently during the decades you were earning, whether you walked into retirement without dragging a pile of debt behind you, Whether you kept your monthly burn rate below what your investments could regenerate, whether you treated withdrawals like a scalpel, not a shovel. That is it. No secret, no trick. No magic account type that prints money while you sleep. One move. Open that retirement account summary tonight. Just look at it. Know your number. That is the only action I'm giving you.